Hello, Slicey Dicers. This is Brian with another knife review for you. Today we have the CRKT Thero. This is a design from TJ Shwartz, made by CRKT, obviously. It is based on his Torrent design that was made by Millet, which is a really, really cool knife that is pretty hard to get your hands on. And I really wish I always had, and I never did. And they're pretty expensive. This is not nearly as expensive at $44.95. This is literally like, 1/10 of the price of a very basic Millet Torrent. It does kind of look a lot like a Millet Torrent. It's got the same sort of blade shape, a lot of the same visual cues in the handles. The Torrent is a titanium frame lock, so these are holes in that. But same sort of aesthetic. I do have to say, aesthetically, pretty cool looking knife. Backtrack a bit. For $44.95, what are you getting? You are getting 8CR14 MOV steel, so I guess not womp womp. We'll talk about that more. But and you are getting GFN handles over top of these little carbon fiber little inlay things, and a stainless steel liner lock running on Teflon washers, which I can assure you we will talk about a lot more shortly. You can thumb hole. It's got a flipper too, all that kind of stuff. Very nice looking design. The only thing that I don't like about it, and is I don't like the color of this GFN. This is, potato, whatever you choose, but it's kind of olive greenish, grayish. It's just kind of meh. I would almost rather it was just pure black or a real true dark gray. I don't really, or maybe even red, I do like the little pivot collars. Those are a nice little touch. I do like that. Those look really cool. But I just don't get the greenish, grayish with the carbon and the red. It's just not a color scheme that I particularly like very much. And this is the only one you can get. Coated blade, not super excited about that either. But I would be perfectly fine with that. Just if they had, I just don't like the color of those scales. I don't mind the color of these scales in and of themselves, but combined with the carbon and the red, I don't know. I think it's a bit busy. But the overall look of it is fine. I like the little holes on this, like the shape and stuff is great. It could be a beautiful knife, but I think it's just let down by that color choice. But again, that is a personal thing. But other than that, quality is actually pretty good on this one. I know CRKT, everybody bags on them all the time, but this one's all right. Centering's pretty good. It's a little off, and I have had this one apart, so I can't blame CRKT 100% for that. And everything else is good. Lockup is really good. Lockup is exactly what you'd be looking for. Yes, there's a pretty thin liner lock, but it's about what you'd be looking for. All that stuff that I took it apart, put it back together. The hardware seems of a decent quality for $45. It is a bit complicated to take apart. Not that there's anything really in the mechanism, but the screws, these two T6s in the back here, you have to use two T6 wrenches because otherwise the whole barrel just spins, which is always a bit annoying. And it does come apart many pieces because the scales are two pieces. But other than that, it's not too bad. But slightly more complicated than your average knife to take apart is in this price range usually. Let's do some specs and size comparisons before we get too much farther. We have an overall length of 7.4 inches, blade length of dead on 3 inches, blade length of 0.125 inches, handle thickness of 0.54, and a weight on my scales 3.07 ounces. Just misses the golf clap. They claim 3.1, so 3.07. It's a little less. Size comparisons. Let's do our usual Spyderco sandwich. Excuse me. Sorry, I've been breathing plaster dust all day, so my throat's a bit off. We have your Spyderco Paramilitary 2 and your Spyderco Para 3. You can see it's much closer to Para 3 size than it is to PM2 size. We will do the Benchmade Sandwich. I use these not because they're comparable, but because you guys probably have them or have seen one. This is the full-size Benchmade Griptilian and the Benchmade Bug Out. Very similar in size to the Bug Out, in length anyways. And one that is probably more applicable in this kind of price range. We have your Ontario Rat Model 1 and the Wrap Model 2. So again, more Model 2 size than Model 1 size. Now, talk about this knife more specifically, the blade. So 8CR 14 MOV. I don't know anything about it. I haven't had it before. I've had other people that know more than me say that there's really not that much difference between it and 8CR 13. I think maybe there's a tad bit more carbon. I can't remember what it is that there's more of in it. I'm probably wrong about that, but I know it's got a little bit more of something in it. But I can say, using this and doing some cardboard tests and using a CRKT, the Pete, which we'll talk about later, has 8CR 13 MOV. Using them both side by side, doing cardboard tests and stuff, yeah, I can't tell the difference at all. Edge retention's about the same, and CRKT does a good job with 8CR 13. They seem to have done a decent job with the 8CR 14. I don't know. It's not the worst 8CR that you're going to see, but it's still 8CR. That was my general conclusion. It's still 8CR. Not particularly thin behind the edge either. It's about 25 thousandths behind the edge. Blade thickness is pretty thin. Pretty good tip on it, but it's not a slicing machine. It's fine, but it's not like, it's not great by any means. It's definitely still a knife, but it's not an awesome slicer. Blade, I'd say, is all right on it, I guess, is kind of what it is. For $44.95, as much as I'm sick of seeing D2, I'd have rather seen some D2. I'd forgive it being a bit thick behind the edge if it was D2 and it was going to hold an edge for a long time, where this, I don't think, is going to. As far as the ergonomics go, that's actually pretty darn good. I do have to say, I really do like the ergonomics on it. No deep carry pocket clip, but I will say the design of this, I think if it did have a deep carry, it would probably be digging into my palm a little bit. But so I don't really mind it that much. And it does help the ergos a lot. It's definitely grip. It's not going anywhere. This jimping up here is perfectly placed. And just the right amount of grippy without being too obscene. And I really do like the ergos. The ergos on this thing are excellent. Probably my favorite part of the knife, I will say. Now, as far as the carry goes, let's get out the old Dickies pants. It carries pretty good, actually. Just enough ramp on the pocket. Even with this really thick denim, it still slides in there really well. It's pretty thin, 3.1 ounces, 3.07 ounces, very light. You don't feel that flipper tab too bad at all. Everything's nicely rounded off. It's a really nice knife to carry in the pocket. It is kind of one of those, put it in there and forget about it kind of knives. Fold these back. You can see how little room it takes up in the pocket. It's just that much. So not bad at all. It carries really well. Action on this. It could have done better. It's running on Teflon washers, which I don't think that's the end of the world. I mean, I just gave another CRKT on Teflon to Pete a pretty rave review. I really like this, but this is $28.95. This is $44.95, and it's worse. I've had it apart. I've done my usual tricks to it. Rockets right out okay most of the time. You have to do it with some authority, but yeah, it's really just not. I have a lot of knives on Teflon that are better. It's not horrible. It's not like, oh my God, what a piece of crap. It doesn't look like a gas station knife or anything, but it's just not for, the Torrents were known for having like an amazing action, the original one, and this one just does not. And you can Spidey flick it, but it takes like a lot of wrist, and it's just that. Yeah, and that's why it's slightly off center, because I had to loosen it up just to get it to go that good. It was perfectly centered when I got it, and I had to back it off a little bit and Loctite it just so that I could get it to drop that well, which is fairly unimpressive. So what are my conclusions? I think you can tell. Not a fan. I know that a lot of people are. I'm probably going to be in the minority on this. I've heard a lot of other reviewers say really, really nice things about it. It looks great if you like that color. I don't even like that. I guess I like the ergos a lot. I like the blade shape. if it was either better steel or on phosphor bronze washers or bearings or something, if it had either better steel or better action, I'd probably be raving about it. But it has neither of those things. And here's the problem with that. At $44.95, there are other things out there. I have some of them in front of me. You've got, for what, $52, just a couple bucks more. Best Tech Texel. Love that thing. For what, I think these are $42.50. CV Backlash. Yes, it's a larger knife, but still. You have its own brethren. The Pete, $28.95. Better knife. Yeah, it's smaller, I know. We're kind of doing a bit of potato thing here. You've got your Steel Will Mini Modus, about the same price. These are all, you know, that's a lot of the ones I showed you are D2 or 9CR, just better steels or better action or both. And yeah, if you really like the look of this thing, then at $44.95, yeah, go for it. But I think if as user knife, something you're going to use all the time, there are better options out there. And I'm sad to say it because I was really looking forward to this because I always really wanted a Torrent and I never got one. And this is kind of a budget Torrent and I was really excited about it. And it's just doesn't float my boat. So hope you guys have enjoyed this. I've been Brian. Have a good one.